Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Hi guys, it's Splash and Crash here with another video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Trust the Process 76ers. This will be the first episode in a new series I'm starting. Basically, I will be going over the past decade of NBA basketball. Right now, I'm going to look over every team and what they did during the past decade. And then I will also be looking at other parts of the past decade, like ranking every player at every position, all the MVPs, all the championship teams. A huge shout out to Dom2K, who first did this series, and I really liked it. So I want to do something similar to what he did on his channel. So yeah, let's get started. In the first season of this decade, the 2009 to 2010 76ers were bad. They only won 27 games, and there were a few key players on this team. Andre Iguodala, who was only 26 and had his best season up until that point, averaging 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. He was still looking like a future superstar, and he was an all-star snub this year. They had Allen Iverson, who came home for his last season. He wasn't anything special. He was just a decent role player. But this was his last season, so he wanted to spend it in Philadelphia, where his career started. And that's also where he won his MVP. They also had Elton Brand, who was out of his prime. He exited his prime a few years before this, and he was just like a decent starter. He wasn't anything special. And then they had three really young players who looked like they had a lot of potential. Thaddeus Young, who was 21 years old and was coming off a season averaging 15 points per game. Jrue Holiday, a young guard that they had just drafted in the 2009 draft, and he was also looking like he could be something special. And Lou Williams, a young guard whose dribbling skills strongly resembled Allen Iverson. Obviously, he wasn't as good, but he had a similar play style to him, and he was looking like he had a lot of scoring potential. So, yeah, like I said, this team was horrible, and they only won 27 games. The process didn't really start yet, but, yeah, so this was just like a regular bad team that had a star that wanted to win in Andre Iguodala. This is kind of like, for example, the Phoenix Suns. They have a decent team, but they just can't win games. The 2010 draft wasn't an incredible draft, but it did have a few stars, including the consensus number 1 pick, John Wall, who was looking like a future superstar, and he did become a superstar. Unfortunately for the Sixers, they just missed out on the number 1 pick, and they landed the number 2 pick, with which they took Evan Turner, who is a bust. This is very unlucky because not only did they miss out on John Wall, they also missed out on 3 other stars in DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, and Gordon Hayward, who also all went in the top 10. This is just one of a few busts the Sixers would take in the top 3 picks throughout this next decade. In the 2010 to 2011 season, the 76ers were actually decent, and they finished with a 41-41 record, as well as the 7th seed. This is because Elton Brand had a bit of a resurgence this season, and he averaged 15 points and 8 rebounds. Still not close to his prime, but like a much better season than the previous year. And Jrue Holiday progressed into a 14-point per game scorer and was looking like he had star potential. These two factors helped push the Sixers to the 7th seed, but they had to play the Heat in the first round, who had just finished their first season with their big 3. So they got destroyed in the first round, and yeah, but it was looking promising as the Sixers' young core got better and it looked like they had some trade pieces in Alton Brand as well as Iguodala, who wasn't looking like he could be that superstar that people thought he could be anymore, but he was still looking like a great piece for a championship contender. So both of these players would have lots of trade value in the offseason. In the 2011 draft, the Sixers don't really do much except they get a steal with the 16th pick as they select Nikola Vucevic, who would eventually become an all-star in the year 2019. But as for his time in Philly, he didn't really do much. So let's make our way to the 2011 to 2012 season, where the 76ers finished 35-31. Note, this is a better record than the previous season, even though they had less wins, because there was less games in the 2012 season due to a lockout. But the Sixers, unfortunately for the Sixers, this is only good for an 8th seed. But miraculously, they're able to beat Chicago in the first round, who is the 1 seed and one of 250, and Chicago was actually tied for the best record in the NBA. But this isn't because the Sixers are better than Chicago. It's because Derrick Rose suffered a tragic injury that we will all know ended his MVP career. Took away all of his MVP potential. But nonetheless, the Sixers make their way to the second round and are somehow able to take the Big Three Celtics to 7 games. This is huge for the Sixers. They lose in 7, but it shows that their young core has lots of potential for the future. In the 2012 offseason, the Philadelphia 76ers take part in one of the most disastrous trades in NBA history. There's a 14 mega trade between the Lakers, Magic, Nuggets, and Sixers, in which the Sixers give up Andre Iguodala, Nikola Vucevic, their young center that they just drafted, as well as a 2017 unprotected first-round pick that ended up becoming De'Aaron Fox after it was traded a bit. So, yeah, basically they gave up 3 all-stars, because De'Aaron Fox is going to be an all-star very soon. Or someone else that they could have taken from that draft probably could have also been an all-star. So they basically gave up 3 future all-stars for Andrew Bynum, who would never play a game for the Sixers due to an injury, and Jason Richardson, who is super old and would only play 2 seasons for the Sixers, in which he was pretty garbage. So yeah, they gave up 3 future all-stars for basically nothing. That is one of the stupidest trades that has ever happened. Another thing that happened in the 2012 offseason that was horrible for the Sixers is Lou Williams signed with the Atlanta Hawks, so they lost their young, blossoming guard. After that disastrous offseason, the Sixers finished 34-48. Yeah, you'd think they finished way worse after giving up their best player in Andre Iguodala, but Jrue Holiday blossomed into an all-star this year. Thad Young also progressed, and Evan Turner was actually looking like he had a bit of potential as he became a point forward. So even after that crazily bad offseason, the Sixers still had a good young core, and there was a bit of light at the end of this tunnel. During the 2013 draft, the Philadelphia 76ers make a horrible move in which they trade their all-star point guard Jrue Holiday to the New Orleans Pelicans for the newly drafted rookie Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel would miss his entire rookie season due to injury. Yeah, the Sixers are stupid. But also in this draft, they take Michael Carter-Williams with the 11th pick. If you don't know who Michael Carter-Williams is, this may not seem like a significant move, but during the 2013 to 2014 season, the Sixers only win 19 games, but they look like they have an incredibly bright future because Thad Young starts averaging 18 points a game. Evan Turner has his best season yet, and he averages 17, 5, and 5. So now they already look like they have 2 future stars. And then Michael Carter-Williams, the rookie that they took with the 11th pick, averages 17, 7, and 7 in his rookie season, including a debut where he almost puts up a quadruple-double against the reigning champion Miami Heat that have LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. And the Sixers beat the Heat. What? Yeah, so even though the Sixers only win 19 games, they're looking incredible. And in this offseason, the process starts. So now it looks like the Sixers will have a ton of good draft picks for the future due to Sam Hinkie starting trust the process, and he's going to start flipping a bunch of players for picks. They also have 3 really good young players that all look like they can be stars. In the 2014 offseason, the Philadelphia 76ers select Joel Embiid with the 3rd overall pick. Embiid looks promising, but he gets injured, and he will miss the next 2 seasons, so it looks like he will be a bust. They also trade one of their biggest pieces of the young core, Thaddeus Young, just for a first-round pick. And during the 2014 season, they moved Michael Carter-Williams and Evan Turner to the Milwaukee Bucks for a first-round pick and to the Indiana Pacers for Danny Granger and a second-round pick, respectively. Both of these trades looked horrible at the time, and yes, I know that Evan Turner, Michael Carter-Williams, and as well as Thad Young, who they traded in the offseason, I know they all didn't turn into stars, but I think if they were just given a chance to lead a team and just learn how to be better, I think they could have been something much better than they ended up becoming. So yeah, it's looking horrible for the Sixers. Their young center looks like he will be a bust. Joel Embiid, he looks like he'll be a bust because he's going to miss 2 seasons due to injury. They just traded 3 of their biggest pieces in the young core, and Nerlens Noel, the center they drafted in the previous season. No, the center they traded their all-star point guard for in the previous season. Yeah, he's not looking like anything special. But the Sixers did have one bright spot this season. They signed undrafted forward Robert Covington, and he's looking like a great 3-and-D player. He doesn't look like a star, but he looks pretty good. But other than that, the Sixers have a horrible offseason and season and go 18-64. Things are looking bleak. In the 2015 draft, the Sixers take a center once again. This is because Nerlens Noel isn't looking like he's going to be good, and Embiid is looking like he's going to be a bust due to injury. So they take Jahlil Okafor, a dominant post player, and a player that looks like a future superstar. And in his rookie season, he lives up to those claims as he averages 17-7 and is very dominant. The Sixers only win 10 games due to all of the moves they made in the previous 2 seasons, and all the trades they made, trading all of their good players. But Okafor is their one bright spot. In the 2016 offseason, the Sixers take point forward player who is compared to LeBron James, Ben Simmons, with the 1st overall pick. This looks like an incredible pick, even though Ben Simmons will miss his entire rookie season due to injury. He looks like a future superstar. Also, Joel Embiid is finally healthy, so the Sixers now have 3 young centers that all might be good. But yeah, they'll figure that out later. So during the 2016 to 17 season, the Sixers, things are looking better. Embiid is able to play half of the season, even with his injury, and he looks incredible, averaging 29 points per game per 36. And Robert Covington gets more efficient. So yeah, it looks like Embiid's the future superstar. Unfortunately, this does mean that Okafor will have to take a backseat to Embiid and will become a bench player. This along with the 3-point revolution, hurts Okafor a lot and proves that this era just wasn't for him, and this situation in Philly was a pretty bad situation. Maybe Okafor could have been a better player on a different team or in a different era, but we'll never know because Okafor became a bust this season, and everyone realized that his rookie season was just a fluke. So, although Simmons is looking great, Covington is looking great, and Embiid is looking great, the Sixers have drafted another bust instead of Kristaps Porzingis, who has a great season. Even with Jahlil Okafor being a bust and Ben Simmons' a lack of shooting, which makes his fit with Joel Embiid a bit iffy, the Sixers are looking like a future super team dynasty with Embiid, Simmons, as well as Covington as a good supporting piece. During the 2017 offseason, the Sixers move up from the third pick to the first pick, and they select Markelle Fultz. This gives them a crazy future big three of Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid. These three players are all looking like future superstars, and the future looks incredibly bright for the Sixers, and people start calling Sam Hinkie a genius for all of those picks he traded for and this huge process thing that everyone doubted. But during the season, things get weird. The Sixers have a great season as Simmons and Embiid are incredible, and they lead the Sixers to the playoffs, including, I believe, a 15 or 16 game win streak at the end of the year. So yeah, the Sixers look incredible in the future. But Fultz, he has this mystery shoulder injury that makes him look like a future bust, and he has a horrible rookie year. And the Sixers look stupid as the player that was taken with the third pick, who the Sixers traded to the Celtics in that trade for Fultz, was Jason Tatum. And during the playoffs, Jason Tatum leads a Kyrie-less and Gordon Hayward-less Boston Celtics team, who are supposed to be their two best players. He leads that team past the Sixers in the second round in only 5 games, and he takes LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games. Yeah, so the Sixers look stupid for that move, but Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid make up for that. So Philly fans are content, and the league is scared of the Sixers' potential. During the 2019 NBA season, the Sixers made moves. They moved Dario Saric and Robert Covington to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jimmy Butler, making their dynamic duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid a big three. But that's not it. They moved some other pieces to the Los Angeles Clippers for Tobias Harris, making it look like they had a big four on paper, because Tobias Harris was a all-star caliber player last year. So, yeah, the Sixers now had a big four. And it was more like a big 4.5, because J.J. Redick broke out and averaged 18 points per game, which is pretty close to 20 points a game. And, yeah, had his best season ever at 34 years old. So the Sixers had one of the best starting fives in the NBA. And some people were even putting them in the same sentence as the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, that's incredible. Like the Big Five Warriors. People were comparing this team to that. Yeah, that's crazy. Anyways, the Sixers start going through the regular season. It finished the year as a 3rd seed. And they beat the Brooklyn Nets in 5 in the first round. And they take the Toronto Raptors to 7. This is a crazy series, and probably could have been a huge rivalry going into the future, but unfortunately, due to what happened in the offseason, it isn't. But anyways, so in Game 7, the score is tied. There's only a few seconds left on the clock. It's looking like it's going to overtime. And Kawhi Leonard gets the ball off the inbound, and he shoots a shot over Joel Embiid, which bounces on the rim 4 times, and it goes in at the buzzer. This was the first ever Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history, and it happened to the Sixers team. This team was probably good enough to go to the NBA Finals and probably could have beaten up Golden State Warriors team. So this is very unfortunate for the Sixers that this happened. And this is also because Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler were both free agents, and people didn't think they could have brought back both of them. But yeah, so that was very unfortunate for the Sixers. But if they could bring back this team, it was looking like they could rule the East for the next few seasons. And that caps off what the Sixers were able to do during the 2010s. So overall, I didn't realize how bad the Sixers did this decade. They made a ton of bad moves. They were horrible for most of the decade, and they had potential to be so much more, but due to bad front office decisions, they weren't able to. Yeah, I think the Sixers did horrible this decade. Now, I know that might seem weird because they were able to get Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, as well as they were able to trade for Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, but none of those moves have amounted to much, except the Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons moves. And Embiid and Simmons have a ton of problems. They don't fit together. So, yeah, I think they have enough trade value and assets to have a very good 2020s. They just have to get... Elton Brand has to just be good as the GM. And, yeah, so that's it for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you haven't already. And, yeah, that's it for this video. So, bye.